We're on the final part of the Night Raven restoration, so let's get this done.
Armies of the night, evil taking flight, Cobra!
I had hoped to salvage some of the original stickers, but unfortunately the previous owner had put them in all the wrong places, and I mean all the wrong places. So the surviving stickers had to go. So Melinda and I stripped the Night Raven down and then removed the sticky residue with WD-40 and then gave all the parts a good cleaning. Then what I did was I placed an order on CobraStickers.com for a sheet of replacement labels. Now normally, as you've seen in our restorations, we make our own restoration labels, our own reproduction stickers. But in the case of G.I. Joe and Transformers, I can't not recommend going with Cobra stickers and repro labels because they do such a good job reproducing them. They're already die cut, they're on the proper transparent sticker paper that G.I. Joes were known for. They're ready to go. So I really recommend you using that service because it'll just save you a lot of time and headaches. So let's get this thing re-stickered and then we will start putting accessories back on. Something was pointed out to me after part 2 by a subscriber who noticed that the Night Raven that I have, which seems to be a common issue amongst a lot of Night Ravens, is that it was missing the third tire in the middle of the rear landing gears on both of them. As you can see, I now have 3. The way this works to fix this error is, of course, you have to get another set of tires from another set of landing gears. Once you have those in your possession, the way you can simply do this without having to risk breaking the lower fuselage through disassembly is, I'm going to use a loose landing gear to show you this. You simply take the wheel assembly and you pull it straight off the landing gear itself. Once you have that in place, then what you can do is actually shimmy one of the tires over to the center like this. And then once this one's in the center, you get a donor tire, put it on the end, and then you clip everything back together, which is what I did to repair this little error. I think what happens is a lot of the people who bought Night Ravens didn't realize that all 3 tires were supposed to go on that piece before assembly. They just shortcut it with 2 tires when they were kids, or their parents shortcut it. So a lot of Night Ravens don't have them, which is really frustrating. Okay, now we get to the part that I think we've all been waiting for, and that's putting all the accessories back on. I had some good fortune to run into a number of parts that I needed through Yo-Jo Museum and Outlet. They're an eBay store run by 2 brothers, Chris and Kyle Cooper, and they were very helpful in trying to get me the parts I needed. You can spot them on eBay by the fact that all of the toys and parts of toys that they sell are photographed over the Cobra symbol, the famous G.I. Joe Cobra logo. So the first thing I want to do is talk about this cockpit elevator. In the last episode of this restoration, part 2, I didn't talk about putting this in, and there's a reason for that. You don't have to fully assemble the lower fuselage with this in place. You can actually leave this out, and I'll show you what I mean. It's a lot easier to assemble the cockpit elevator with this off the vehicle. At least that's what I'm going to attempt. And the way you can get this off the vehicle without disassembling the whole fuselage is by simply undoing the screw at the front of the plane. Once that's separated, you can just simply separate the fuselage slightly and lift this up and remove it without having to do all the other disassembly, and that's nice. So here's our elevator, I guess, attachment point. This is actually the frame that the cockpit will slide up and down on. A lot of the Night Ravens, unfortunately, have this tab, this lower tab, broken off. This tab supports the cockpit assembly, and if you don't mount it correctly, you can actually pull and break this tab off. I have another one here. The tab was strained, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see this, it's coming away from the part. It's about to snap off. It also is at a bad angle, which means that your cockpit elevator isn't going to sit 90 degrees to the Night Raven. And you don't want that because it's a very finicky mechanism to begin with. You want it working properly from the get-go. So we're going to use this one. The first thing you do is you have this lower hull piece. This is the lower fuselage, and it's going to mate up here when it closes. Alright, in order to get the elevator, cockpit, and tray back together, the elevator mechanism and the lower tray, I have boiled water. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to use the heat to soften up the two plastic parts so that they will marry together more easily without breaking. So we just hold them in the water for a few minutes, hoping that that makes things a little more flexible. Don't know if it will. Being careful not to hit that sticker. Alright, let's cross our fingers and hope for the best. We're going to push this like this. And there it goes, locking in with very little resistance. That's perfect. Alright, so now that we've got this done, we can take our cockpit assembly, which actually had some good stickers on it, so I'm not going to replace those. And we can lock that into place. Now that that is together, we can attempt... Sometimes these things like to slip out, so what I might do is just worry about getting the cockpit seats in there after I put it on the ship. But the disadvantage to that is you'll have to press it down, and when you flip the plane back over, if you start pressing down on this, you could press on this part too hard and undo all your work by breaking this piece. So I'm trying to set it in there, or seat it properly, so that we don't have to worry about it falling out. I don't know if I'm going to be so lucky. Alright, and then we're going to lift the nose like before. You see that slot right in there, where it sort of creates a T. I'm going to take this part, and we're going to slide it into place. And as you can see, the cockpit has already collapsed, so, or the seats have already fallen out. So we're going to tighten down this front screw. This is working. Now what we'll do is flip over, being sure to support the cockpit elevator the entire way. I'm going to set this down, and then I'm going to get that cockpit in place. Always be sure when you're tightening this that you support underneath with your fingers and then push with your thumbs. That way you don't press down too hard on the mechanism itself and break that tab. Okay, that looks good. So for now, I'm just going to leave that the way it is, because eventually we're going to have to put our pilot in it. Alright, let's get on to the rest of the accessories. We'll start with this roof cannon. This is the roof cannon. It often has a little grilled shield, a shield grill that's missing. So you'll want to get both of those parts. That goes in right here. Alright, that's in place. Alright, now let's get the fins on. This is the one for the port or 9 o'clock side. And this one here with this emblem is the one for the starboard or 3 o'clock side. It's pretty simple. You have 3 tabs. They match the 3 slots, and then you push rearward. All right. Now it's starting to look like an airplane. All right, now it's time to build the drone. The drone goes on the back of the Night Raven. It's kind of an auxiliary shuttle. So the first thing we're going to do with this disassembled drone, this is the lower fuselage and this is the upper fuselage. We're going to flip this over. We're going to take this windshield, which we use Novus on to clean up, and we're going to reattach it to the interior of the upper fuselage. Always being careful not to force the plastic to do what it doesn't want to do. Yep, that feels secure. All right, here is the interior and the rear engine of the drone. The rear engine is tapered, and the drone's rear is tapered, so it fits sort of in a keyed position in a slot. There are clips on the upper fuselage, and this cockpit's going to clip into those, but be careful when you press it back in. Try and pull the sides of the cockpit a little bit to take strain off those tabs. And there we go. It locks in like that. All right, now that's secure. So now that we have the pilot's compartment in the drone, now we will sandwich the two together. There's a tab at the front, so slip that through first. And then you have 4 tabs at the back around the wings. Alright, that's clipped together. Coming apart. And then you have 2 cannons for the wings. You want to make sure that these details on the cannons face outside the ship, so on either side of the drone. So those just press fit in. There's one. And there's 2. So there's your complete drone. The drone has a slot underneath, and there is a fin on the back of the Night Raven. So the drone sits neatly on the back of the Night Raven. When you're doing this, remember not to press too hard on the Night Raven because the landing gears, they are grumpy and they can spite you by snapping. Alright, so there is our drone that's mounted. Now we can do missiles and missile launchers. Alright, let's do missile launchers. You have 2 wing launchers, and Yojo Outlet was kind enough to provide these for us. They have Cobra symbols on them, and they mount right underneath the wings. So if you lift up, you'll see these mounting points. So we do one, it snaps in nicely. And then we do the second one underneath here. Now we have our wing cannons, our wing missile launchers. And finally, we have the bomb bay, or the missile compartment underneath. A lot of times this thing will get loose. Might need to dry that off a little bit. Fortunately for us, our bomb bay still locks into place. A lot of them, you know, they get worn out over time and they fall out. Alright, so we have our missiles. And there's a clip right here on my above my finger. The missile has a little slot. one. You want to press those in pretty snug so that the door will clear when it goes back up into the fuselage. And then, let's see, let me get this around, and we'll put the second missile in there. Like I said, sometimes it takes some doing. All right. Missiles are in, and they're snug. Bomb bay is locking into place. And finally, we have our pilot. And this completes the Night Raven. So we'll get the pilot into his nifty elevator cockpit. You really want to be careful when you do this because once again you don't want to strain that elevator mechanism. In fact, I would almost recommend removing the cockpit itself, meaning this pilot seat, just for the sake of safety. All right, pilot is in place. I have this feeling that he's not going to be leaving this cockpit for quite some time. All right. And there he is. This is our completed Cobra Night Raven. Back from the dead. Dan Geister did a good thing when he rescued this Night Raven from a garage sale. And that's one of the learning lessons to take away from this restoration is don't overlook things in a garage sale that you think might be just toast. Now, there are some toys that are toast. I mean, if they have huge cracks or big shattered parts off of them or things like that, then sure, walk away. But Dan saw this G.I. Joe airplane and he thought, you know what? I bet you Michael at RetroBlasting can do something with this. But it's not just me. You guys can do something with these kinds of toys too. It just takes a little time and a little patience. And with help from friends like Chris and Kyle at Yojo Outlet and Museum, I was able to really put this thing back together nicely because they were able to source the parts. I was able to acquire those from them. And then with a little bit of MacGyvering, fixing up some trouble spots, we were able to make this a really nice showpiece for the RetroBlasting archive. So think about that the next time you're at a toy show or you're at a garage sale. I know you're probably thinking, I want a minty example that's, complete. And if you're willing to pay the premium on that, that's great. But if you're not, don't underestimate yourself. Don't overlook the ones that might need just a little TLC to become a real centerpiece of your collection. So thanks for watching this, and we will see you on the next restoration.